We are live this morning talking about San Francisco 49ers Super Bowl window. Also, Deommodore Lenoir, he sat down with Richard Sherman, talks about wanting to be the best cornerback in the NFL. And Marques Sigle got a pro comp. One I kind of like. This cornerbacks coach or defensive back coach said he reminds him of. We're going to talk about all that more right now on Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On 49ers. I'm your host, former NFL and NFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. You guys can find me on Twitter at Coach Crocky. And of course, we're talking all things San Francisco 49ers this morning. Want to thank you for making Locked On 49ers your first listen of the day. And man, jump right into this live show and talk about some key storylines surrounding the San Francisco 49ers. Shout out to everybody that's up bright and early on this Wednesday morning. All right, got 49 gang 916 in the chat. We got the new in the chat. At 49 gang 916. So I'm assuming you're from the Sacramento area. And I heard Boogie Cousins talk about Sacramento being the Alabama of California, or that Sac reminded him of Alabama when he was flying in. And it's like, okay, I get, the farmland surrounding Sacramento, but Sacramento and it's kind of like all the little areas around it, the Folsom and Roseville. It's like 2 million people. Sacramento is a very popping city, if you ask me. I like Sac. I like Sac. So I felt a little disrespect towards Sacramento from Boogie Cousins, comparing it to Alabama. And as someone who lived in the South, Arkansas, was going through Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. All right, and 49ers gang 916 says, Grant, baby, great high school out there. Love those guys. My guy Saquon Thompson over there doing his thing. All right, let's talk San Francisco 49ers. And, I'm listening to Chris Sims. I always want to call him Matt Sims because Matt Sims, again, I wasn't with the New York Jets for like seasons or anything like that. But I was on the Jets with Chris Sims' brother, who was a quarterback, Matt Sims. And he actually had some starts that season as well when Geno Smith went down with an injury at one point during his rookie year. But Chris Sims, he's on there. He's talking with LaFleur, and they are discussing the 49ers Super Bowl window. And originally they're just talking about everything surrounding the San Francisco 49ers. And then they get to, is the window open or is it closed, and what are their thoughts on it? Right now, they obviously know that the 49ers are in a tough spot. They have a lot of injuries. And as someone mentioned in the comments yesterday, I read the comments. I said, hey, it's not doom or gloom. These are all short-term injuries. They are short-term injuries. And I think there are a group of these guys who, if they could, or if there was a big game coming up, let's say this Sunday, maybe a lot of those guys will actually play in that game. And maybe the 49ers just being more cautious with getting those guys out there. But we've seen the 49ers have a lot of injury issues. And if you're starting off training camp this way, if you're starting off the season this way, where there are these bumps and bruises and things like that, like, are you getting the best version of everyone? At some point in the season, everybody's hurt. Devontae Adams said it. He said there's a 100% injury rate at the NFL level. Like, you will get hurt at some point. You will be banged up at some point. But I don't think you want to see your guys just not just being banged up. Some of the things that's happening right now with Jordan Watkins, like, that's a high ankle sprain. Like, that's more than just a bump or bruise. That's a guy that is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. They're saying 4 weeks. I've had that injury again, different grades of it. We'll see how significant it is, but he's going to be missing time. A guy that the 49ers need to be on the field because he has to continue to work to build that camaraderie with his quarterback, right? That cohesiveness, the timing, get that down. 49ers offense is a really big timing-based offense, and you're going to need to be out there to get that bond down with the quarterback. Unless you're just so great. But guys like him, they got to go through the ups and downs, make their mistakes, get yelled or cussed at by Kyle Shanahan until they get it right. So there are guys with just bumps and bruises, right? Like, how hurt is Juwan Jennings? maybe not hurt at all. Maybe he's just a little banged up and he could play if a game was happening this Sunday. But I think it is still all noteworthy. And when you look at the moves that the 49ers are trying to make at the receiver position, that lets you know they are trying to figure out some way to just suit enough guys up. So I don't take it like super serious, but enough serious, especially with the young guys. I don't Michael Williams, that ankle injury, it doesn't worry you at all. It worries me a little bit. But he mostly talks about the lack of health at the receiver position and all actually goes on to compare the 49ers receiver situation with maybe right away not having like the guy, right? Like the 49ers don't have a T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, like that type of guy right now. When Brandon Ayuk comes back, eventually, hopefully he grows back into that role. Not sure what he's going to be coming off of an ACL tear and more. And he's going to hit the ground running. We don't know, right? So he comes back after about 6 games or so. How much longer does it take for him to get back to being himself? Maybe another, 4 to 5 games. So the last quarter of the season, maybe we see the best version of him. Can the 49ers get by until then? And you would hope so with guys like Ricky Pearsall, with guys like Juwan Jennings, with guys like Jacob Cowling, who's coming back from an injury as well. But he talks about 49ers maybe not having just the strongest group, and he compared it to the New England Patriots early on. And also talked about how, hey, Brock Purdy, this is when you make your money. Well, Brock Purdy's already made his money. Like, he got his money. And I get what he's saying. No, this is the time where you show that you're worth that type of money. And I will say one of the bigger differences between the New England Patriots then when they were playing with some guys with no names, right? The was it Troy Brown, Tim Brown, Troy Brown. Those guys, like, the mid 2000s when they started kind of winning some of these Super Bowls and going to those. I think the early 2000s, whenever it was a long time ago, guys. I graduated 2005. And the fact that that was 20 years ago, these conversations about this like New England Patriots team, like I remember the game when Tom Brady stepped in, right? Like I remember Drew Brees getting hit and like I'm out. And then Drew Bledsoe getting hit and being out. And then Tom Brady having to trot onto the field. Like I remember that. But I can't believe it's 25 plus years ago or however long. Like it was a long time ago. Either way, all right, those early New England Patriots teams, the biggest difference between Tom Brady not having a plethora of receivers during that time early on and what the 49ers are right now is the Patriots were still able to lean on the defense. Like Tom Brady didn't have to do everything. He didn't have to be everything. And I think where the 49ers are right now with a similar receiving core in the sense of just not having, like, who do they have a true number one? Do they need one? Maybe it's George Kittle. But one of the biggest differences, in my opinion, is, man, that defense. And Patriots defense was really good. And they were leaning on that early on, beating the Rams in the Super Bowl. Like, they were leaning on that to help them win games. And right now with the 49ers, although they don't have the best receiving core that they are currently fielding and may look that way for half the season, I don't think they have the defense to carry them. Now, did those New England Patriots have a Christian McCaffrey, a George Kittle, maybe a Trent Williams at left tackle? I don't remember the left tackle part. Early years, you guys in the chat, you guys could correct me if I'm wrong. Early years, New England Patriots, Corey Dillon, early in those Super Bowls, coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me know if I'm right or wrong on that, right? So, terrific running back, but still a little bit later in his running back career. Don't think he was quite Christian McCaffrey, what McCaffrey is in the NFL right now. McCaffrey coming off of an injury. But these are all things that Chris Sims, almost call him Matt again, Chris Sims talked about and why he believes it's kind of trending towards the 49ers Super Bowl window closing a little bit. And that's tough to hear. But I think when you hear it and you hear the logic, I can agree to some extent. I think I would probably feel a lot more confident if the 49ers weren't rolling out a lot of young guys defensively and a lot of guys that, if they had guys with just more experience, right? Like you do have the Nick Bosa's, the Fred Warners, but it kind of stops there. And Deommodore Lenoir. And I don't want to downplay Deommodore Lenoir and what he is. We're going to talk about him and his thoughts on really being one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. So we'll say that, right? You got one really good to great player at each level. I think it takes more than that. I think it takes more when you think of a Super Bowl team. I think when you go back to 2019 and you look at the 49ers defensive line and you're just rattling off guys like Nick Bosa, DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, D Ford late, right, early and late. You look at the linebackers with Fred Warner and, gosh, you look at the secondary and in the Super Bowl or around that time or conference championship game, you got in the Super Bowl, you got Emmanuel Mosley, Richard Sherman, Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt. It's kind of a loaded defense with a lot of veterans. Like, that was a Super Bowl caliber team. I think right now the 49ers, especially defensively, are reloading. And if they had that 2019 defense, I would say, and you got Robert Saleh back, hell yeah. 49ers can still make a run at it. That window's open while these receivers and everybody kind of get their thing together. And that's exactly what happened in 2019. I don't know if they have the defense right now to hold them over. So I'm not going to say that the 49ers Super Bowl window is shut, but I will say for this season and this season only, and we'll see moving forward, we'll come back to this conversation, it does seem like this isn't, like, Super Bowl is maybe not the expectations for the 49ers as much as we would like it to be. It feels a little bit more like this is a reloading season. And this is a season where the 49ers are gearing back up to make a run next year and the year after that. And they're going to need a lot of growth and development from their younger players. All right, we are talking about the 49ers defense and guys that are loading up. And I think it starts with Deommodore Lenoir. We're going to talk about him and why he believes he will be one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is presented to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Our fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down right now on Yahoo Fantasy. All right, so listen, hear me out. This year, myself, Brian Peacock, the Locked On 49ers crew, we are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer, a veteran, or making a minimal league. All right, listen, they are trying to celebrate right now 28 years of fantasy football greatness. All right, and Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over the next 28 days. All right, so they are giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win, and that is starting right now. All right, stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, Deommodore Lenoir. He sat down with Richard Sherman. And Lenoir is a very intriguing player. All right, cornerback, obviously. Y'all know me. I love talking defensive backs. We're talking about another one in the next segment. But Deommodore Lenoir is interesting because just the arc, right? His career arc and what that has looked like, some of the challenges, the versatility that he has had to show, and really the adversity he has had to face. Me as a high school, I got my high school football stuff on right now. My kids, I talk to them a lot about facing adversity. And Deommodore Lenoir is a guy that has done just that. All right, this is a guy who was drafted, day 3. And he had all the utmost belief in himself. And he played early on. Y'all may not remember this game. No, you'll remember the game when I bring it up. But the now I'm on the New England Patriots. The Green Bay Packers game. Aaron Rodgers out there. Deommodore Lenoir played a lot in that game early on. It was like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Trey Lance ran the ball for a touchdown. It was primetime television. And I believe it was Demo who gave up something late. Whether he was a cover 2 corner or however he played it, kind of played it a little off. And after that, 49ers started going away from him. He was a guy that was playing early in that season, and they started going away from Deommodore Lenoir. I think they had Josh Norman that season, right? Like there were some older guys, some vets. And the following season, he has talked about how he felt like he was going to get cut. And what saved him was the 49ers went to Minnesota. They did the whole joint practice and he competed. Like he's like, I want Justin Jefferson. I want Jefferson. And he's competing and he's scrappy. And Shanahan is watching. And he made some plays on Justin Jefferson. And he felt like that was the one thing that kind of saved him. It saved him from being cast off, saved him from getting cut, right? But he had to face adversity. This is a guy, again, that has the most confidence, like the most confidence in himself. I think at that time, not saying he lacked confidence, but he felt like I might be the odd man out. And he had to fight through that adversity. And not only did he do that, he continued to fight. And he talked about how, early on, I think we viewed Deommodore Lenoir a certain way. Now, legit starting corner. He actually, 81 overall Madden or 83 overall Madden. He feels like, man, that's disrespectful. I should be at like a 90. All right. But he feels kind of slighted a little bit. And if you look at the things that he's had to go through and the roles he's had to go through and the adversity he's had to go through, I understand why. This is a guy that was an outside cornerback at Oregon and played very well there. Really, I think, kind of made his niche being a versatile defensive back for the 49ers, being able to play cornerback, being able to play in the slot. And his role and his confidence has continued to grow every year. And not just because, hey, I'm out there, I'm doing my thing. Like, no, he has been making big plays and big time opportunities. And he talked about the fan base getting on him heading into one of those postseasons. I believe it was the season where Brock Purdy got hurt. But he had some clutch interceptions, picked off Dak Prescott in the playoff game. And he talked about that being his favorite play that he's had as a 49ers, like just going and just making a huge play on a big stage. And that was kind of like, man, I've arrived. Right? And he was making some plays down the stretch of the season, made a couple plays in the postseason, picked off another pass in the next round. This is a guy that continued to just grow. And when you watch him now and what the expectations are, like you feel it. Like, oh, Deommodore Lenoir is not out there during practice. You feel that. Oh, Deommodore Lenoir is not out there. He's not playing in the preseason game. You feel it. And I don't think people are viewing him as, Patrick Surtain or Sauce Gardner, which I don't think Sauce Gardner had the best season last year. But they're not viewing him as this guy that is just this legit star cornerback. And I think he's looking at it like, well, why not? Why am I not being viewed the same way as these other guys? I do my job at a very high level. I'm versatile. I'm inside. I'm outside. We haven't really thrown out a comp for Deommodore Lenoir, and I would love to hear your guys' comp in the chat right now on what you think Deommodore Lenoir is. But here's a player comp. Chris Harris. Chris Harris from the Denver Broncos. This is the guy that I'm trying to think about how many seasons this was. Before a stretch of seasons, he was considered one of the best corners in the league. All right. He was a guy that had inside-outside versatility. He was able to play outside at the cornerback position. He was able to play in that nickel spot, right? So in base situations, the Broncos would roll him and Aqib Talib out there. And then in nickel situations, he would go into the slot and Roby would play on the outside, right? Like that type of ability gives you that type of versatility. Now, the 49ers got Upton Stout, and it sounds like they really like him. Got a little tweak going on. We'll see what's happening with that. But Upton Stout is a guy that the 49ers expect to take over that nickel role. So now Deommodore Lenoir says, man, I don't got to worry about playing in the nickel. I am just an outside cornerback. All right. And he's grown into that. And I think the 49ers have just the most confidence in him being able to hold down that position and play extremely well there. And he has the confidence in himself. So I don't know. Where do you guys have Deommodore Lenoir in the league? Does it even matter? And these rankings come out and there's always these comparisons from this guy to that guy. I saw the thing with the NFL. They had Brock Purdy ranked 15th. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow, right? And what that means. But brother, who cares? Who cares? All those things are just talking points. Who cares? Who cares if the execs and the GMs have Brock Purdy below Dak Prescott, below Baker? Like, who cares? All that matters is where does Kyle Shanahan have him? And is he doing what Kyle Shanahan needs him to do? That's all that matters. That is all that matters. So the comparisons in that sense, right? Especially like ranking guys, Deommodore Lenoir. I don't care where the NFL has him ranked. I don't care where an exec has him ranked. He is a terrific cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Todd in the chat says, Crocky, can you compare the skill sets of Lenoir and Green? Are they similar or do they complement each other and provide different strengths to utilize? I think they do. I think they do complement each other very well. I think Lenoir, just with his physicality and how scrappy he is, I think he's someone that's a little bit more made for the nickel, right? Just, from a tackling standpoint, I think there's just a different mindset. He's like a little linebacker. Throwing his body around, being strong there. K'Waun Williams was a guy that was like that as well. Whereas, like, man, that's a guy that he looks like he's just made for the nickel. I think Lenoir is made to play in the nickel and excel at that and be really good. The kid out of, for the Indianapolis Colts, Kenny Moore, right? Like that type of guy. Like, man, he's just made to be a nickel. I think Lenoir is that. Obviously, he can play outside, but I view him as somebody who's like, is he not the best nickel in the entire NFL? Like, I view him that way, as opposed to that cornerback. I think he's obviously really good. I think Green's skill set is just more of an outside cornerback. I think he's fluid. I think he plays with good anticipation. I think he could run. I think he has very oily, loose hips. I think that his feet are really good. He's a guy that it looks like he's not trying overly hard with his change of direction. So I think that they complement each other in the sense of two reasons. One, I think they have good skill sets. I don't look at either one of them as being like clunky movers or anything like that. But I think just the way I would put them out there, they are a little different. But both good. I mean, you watch Green out there in the SEC and what he was asked to do, how he was defending guys like Ricky Pearsall and, some of the Malik Neighbors. Go back and watch. You can pull it up on YouTube, I'm sure. Malik Neighbors versus Ronaldo Green, right? Or just go LSU versus Florida State 2023 or 24, whenever that was. Just go look and see what that looked like. It was awesome to see him battle in that way. So, yeah, I think if you're thinking of like upside, I don't know, because we already know what Deommodore Lenoir is. If they were coming out and they were in the same class, Green would be projected to go higher, which he did get drafted higher. But I like both of them a lot. All right, we got one more guy that we're going to be talking about coming up next. Marques Sigle, his pro comp. And then we're going to get to some more questions in the chat coming up next. All right, guys, it's the morning time right now. I'm recording this episode at 7 a.m. and it is time to fuel up and turn up with 5-Hour Energy. All right, transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink minus the alcohol. All right, we don't need no alcohol this early in the morning into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you are sinking birdies or you're making memories with your friends, this is a hole-in-one for your energy. All right, and let's be honest, some days on a golf course or me sitting down in the chair podcasting, you just need an extra boost, all right, to stay sharp and energized. All right, the wildest shot that I've ever made. Listen, I am not a big golfer. I'm not. I tried to be. I will continue to try to be. We all know how hard and difficult that can be. I putted for birdie one time, and I was so excited. I have not gotten a birdie ever again. All right. So golf, it's about good times and some of those type of memories, but it's also about good flavors. And I think 5-Hour Energy drink is bringing that with you, especially with the ginger lime flavor. That is one that's really, really good. All right. And you got to go to the clubhouse and you can't leave without getting one of those beverages. All right. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code Locked On Golf. All right. Not Locked On NFL, Locked On Golf to receive 20% off of your order. This order is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. All right. I see everything going up this morning in the chat. All right. We got Israel in here. It says, why are you up so early, guys? Hey, man, We are up. We are ready to go. We are ready to get rolling. We started this podcast early this morning. We got people in here watching live right now. All right. So, and hey, man, I do not miss those days of having a baby and, dude is teething. Oh, man, that is tough. That is tough. All right, but let's talk about our next guy. All right, and this is Marques Sigle. And Marques Sigle, he got a couple little, couple things that were talked about with him from coaches. All right, one from Robert Saleh and what he, had to say about Sigle and what he's seen from the game, but also Daniel Bullock, who's their defensive back coach, which I actually butchered that in the opener. All right, but Daniel Bullock, he talks about, man, kind of being Jimmy Ward. Now, listen, Jimmy Ward was not a guy who was a high interception guy. We all know that. But man, he was a bad dude for the 49ers. And he meant the world to the 49ers. I think a lot of stuff that Jimmy Ward was as a 49er kind of gets overlooked just a little bit. This is a guy that had the most versatility. He can guard any type of receiver, can play in the slot, can play in the safety. He was a terrific tackler. He had really good play strength. For a guy that was a little wiry, 5'11", 190, 195 pounds, a little wiry, almost like Green, right? Like, just think of Green, but playing safety. And that's what Jimmy Ward was. So to get the comp of, like, reminding a coach of Jimmy Ward, and that's what Bullock said about Marques Sigle. To me, that is a high. That is a high, like, bar. Because of what he allowed a defensive coordinator to do. Everybody's so excited about Robert Saleh coming back. And again, I mentioned that 2019 defense. And I think that was the best defense that Robert Saleh had. And you just look at all those guys and the things that he was able to do with them, right? When it allows you to be more creative and more versatile as a defensive coordinator, especially when you have Jimmy Ward, where I can line up in base. I can keep 3 linebackers on the field because if I need to roll a safety down, Jimmy Ward can be that. And he can play coverage just like a nickel. So when other teams need to, oh man, we got to have our nickel package in here to defend this 10 personnel offense. Well, the 49ers are like, well, we'll just roll Jimmy Ward down. Now, they had a terrific nickel in K'Waun Williams and everything, but Jimmy Ward was able to do that. If they wanted to give more of a dime look, we can have K'Waun Williams in there, and also Jimmy Ward roll him down and have Jaquiski Tartt play single high. Those were the things that allowed them to do. So now, you're still more stout versus the run, but you're also really good on the back end with coverage. So now when you're hearing Daniel Bullock say, oh man, Marques Sigle, he kind of reminds me, there's some Jimmy Ward vibes there. That excites me because I know how I view Jimmy Ward. And this is a guy that had huge versatility. And Sigle is kind of that, right? Like, this is a guy at Kansas State. He played in that. He kind of played in the nickel. Reminded me a lot of Jalen Petrie. And I remember when Jalen Petrie was coming out, I was like, reminded me a lot of Jimmy Ward. So I see the comparisons here. Guys that can cover in the slot, play in space, be a safety. And Marques Sigle did a lot of that in the preseason game against the Denver Broncos. Man, he was flying around and he was hitting guys and he was making open field tackles and he was out there playing in coverage. And there was a lot to really like and didn't know what to expect. Now, Daniel Bullock said that, and he had the high praise for him in the sense of just that comp. At least it was high praise to me because of how I view Jimmy Ward. But Robert Saleh talked about just the opportunity. 49ers are banged up at the safety position, right? Malik Mustafa, where are they at with him? Why am I blanking on it? Jair Brown, where are they at with him right now? You got some older cats that are back there that they brought in that have a lot of starting experience. But if you can get a rookie to force his way into the starting lineup, I think that's awesome. I think it says a lot about how they feel about Marques Sigle, but this is an opportunity. And when you don't have got Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa out there during training camp or practicing, and you have to put the rookie in there, it's an opportunity. What are you going to do with your opportunities? What are you going to do with it? And right now, it seems like he's making the most of it. I think Robert Saleh is taking notice. I think a lot of the coaches with the 49ers are taking notice. I think the fan base is starting to take notice when you see how you're flying around in that game. Now, you can't just do it one time. You got to do it every day, day after day in training camp. And then you have to play in the game against the Las Vegas Raiders this week. You got to do it over and over again to really make it to where you're a guy that is going to be out there. This is a retooling of the 49ers defense. And the more young guys you have out there getting experience. Now, again, this also depends on what are your expectations of the 49ers this year. I think they'll go to the playoffs. How strong of a playoff team will they be? I'm not sure. And I think they'll go to the playoffs because of, I think the schedule sets it up for the 49ers to win 10-plus games. But moving forward next year, when you hope that the 49ers have kicked that or open that Super Bowl window back up, it's going to be because of guys like Marques Sigle being a very versatile player, feeling more like a veteran, and being able to build around him and Michael Williams and Alfred Collins and C.J. West and all of those guys. Emiliano in the chat says, Jimmy seems to be having trouble off the field nowadays. And on top of that, hasn't played as well in camp for Houston. Not looking good for him right now. You know, Jimmy Ward, he's old now. He's an OG. I say that, me being 38 years old, and I feel old. But let's see, how old is Jimmy Ward? All right. He's been in the NFL a long time. 34 years old. Come on, man. Jimmy Ward, if he's not the best version of himself, I think we got to give him a pass. 34 years old. We know, football players age in dog years. That's a little older. Now, the off the field stuff, I don't want to speak on it, but when I Googled his name just now to see how old he was, a mugshot popped up. I think we all heard a little bit of his off the field stuff. I'm hoping for the best for him and hoping that he gets right. Like Jimmy Ward, I'm always going to be a fan of him no matter, where he's at. This guy I've been watching while he's on Houston Texans. I think struggling a little bit to consistently stay on the field, but a guy who is named one of their captains. So, he goes over there, D'Amico Ryans, they know who he is. But 34 years old. So if he's not having the strongest camp, I think we kind of know a little bit why. He's old. 49er Gang 916 says, I'm excited for Saleh. He definitely has evolved. And he's going to have to continue to evolve because, again, a lot of young players on this San Francisco 49ers defense. Vieta in the chat says, is it just me, or did Sigle really not get much pub into the preseason game? Good for him making the most of this opportunity. Yeah, I agree. We're not hearing a lot about it, but sometimes in training camp, it's hard to tell sometimes, especially when you watch the 49ers offense in training camp, because it's a lot of outside zone, stretch. That's what it looks like to me. I could be butchering that a little bit, but it looks like outside play action, guys running across the formation. They aren't facing an offense that's 2x2, we're going to spread it out, and we're going to, run cover 4. And then cover 4, the safety is responsible for the vertical 2. And, he's pedaling this way, he's flipping this way, making all these pass breakups. It's a little bit more difficult when you're playing a team that is lining up in more strong situations. So when you can watch him against the Denver Broncos team who's kind of throwing it, trying to get Bo Nix in the rhythm and get him going, you get to see a little bit more of a guy just flying around, especially when you're able to hit and take guys to the ground. Emiliano goes on to say, I think Jimmy Ward's struggles is more due to injuries than performance because he hasn't really participated in camp. And again, being old, in my opinion. All right, here we go. Aloha Smitty in the chat says, I want to see what the D-line looks like at full strength. It should free up the linebackers and DBs. If you're watching some of these clips that are floating around on the Twitter or X, I think that's exactly what Alfred Collins and C.J. West are doing. I mean, eating up blocks. I watched them both. All right, so let's talk a little offense here. All right. In our offense that we run at my high school, all right, the way we block things up front, and I think it may be similar at the NFL level. I'm not sure. I need to talk to NFL offensive coordinators. But you'll have these duo blocks or ace blocks, right? Like duo or aces, depending if it's front side or back side. And essentially what you're doing is you're doubling and then you're getting on to the next level. All right. So let's say if you have a center and a right guard, right, and maybe you're running what we call zebra right, they're going to duo block that. All right. And then once it's controlled, they're going to get to the next level and get on the linebackers. Well, when you have guys like Alfred Collins and C.J. West, they are kind of demanding that you stay on those duo blocks. So now the lineman isn't able to get to the next level, which ultimately frees up backers to come free and make tackles. It keeps the linebackers clean. So, yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about, Smitty. He says, it should free up the linebackers and DBs. And I think that's exactly what they're doing, especially in the middle. I would expect with those guys in the interior, we'll see a lot of runs bouncing to the outside. Now, when you have guys like Fred Warner and D Winners flying around, that's what you want, right? You want guys kind of spilling runs, make them bounce to the outside. And all right, we're going to use our sideline and sideline speed. All right, let's get to a couple more in the chat. Vita in the chat says, I'd personally be happy if Demo plays as well as Travarius, healthy and motivated. I think he can actually. In the 49ers offense, I think he can actually be a little bit better. Excuse me, defense. In the 49ers defense, I think he could be a little bit better. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you guys, woke up this morning, got your 49er fix, drank your coffee. Maybe you guys are on a commute right now. Don't be watching on the commute. We'll get the audio version up and loaded ASAP, but we will be back tomorrow to talk more San Francisco 49ers. Let's go.